Hello all, good evening. Hello all, good morning and good evening. Welcome back. In this session, I'm going to cover about prerequisites and fundamentals in this particular session. So let's move ahead. Prerequisite. Okay. So as per my experience and knowledge on API domain, so I vision it as API. So what is the readiness that we should have, for any doc preparation? Okay. So one is, first you should have a endpoints along with details. Endpoint will not, that means endpoint means it's a address, but that is not sufficient. It has to provide remaining details as well. Okay, for example, if I'm talking about any endpoint, you should have a what are the request information, what are the headers it needs, what are the parameters it needs, what are the authentication mechanism it needs, and what are the what is the, if I give input, what is the output it will give, and what kind of error codes it will generate, error messages it will generate. It depends on the functionality of this particular API. Those kind of details we should have, and then we should know as well while we are working on these APIs. And then once available, so we should be in a position to create a collection using in the form of request in an organized way. And once you created the collections, Postman automatically generates a default documentation. Okay, like a basic endpoint will be there, and then corresponding parameters will be listed. Okay, if it is a post, corresponding body will be listed. Okay, and then tests. So we should have a basic test and along with validations as well. Okay, this is the initial stage where we are expecting this one. So basic scripts, in the previous feature edition 1, I have shown you how to generate the basic scripts in one go using the generators. Same you can apply. Okay, once you got the collection. Now, what is the readiness demands here? The prerequisite means API should include the comprehensive details such as URLs, endpoints, and tailored to meet the specific business requirement. Yes. So we should have that kind of information, then only we should be in a position to build these requirements. And must be documented, and elements such as a schema, parameters, error codes, and constructs. At the end, what is the expectation is it should be documented. The moment when you completed the request collection, it has to be documented so that it will be useful while we are on that particular project in the coming months. Okay, and also based on the provided API specification, how these endpoints will be derived to the collection request, because we have every project will have API specification. Suppose sometimes legacy projects may not have, they will see the code and they will give the, hey, this API have this kind of information. So that is the where you do not have any documentation, and you can take leverage of the Postbot and generate the docs for the legacy projects. That is one way. Okay, for as on today, for all the latest projects or any current projects that any organization is running, they'll have definitely API specifications, and that includes all the details of this particular API. What is the schema, what is the input parameters, and what is the path parameters or query parameters, everything specific to each endpoint. We have different parameters. Those kind of details will be provided. Okay, so once that information is available, the QA team can organize into the systematic folder structures, so that will be useful for the next stage. And the next is, as the collection created, Postman automatically generates the default documentation as I told above here. Okay, so it's give the basic information about the method it has and what are the parameters it has. Okay, so we are the persons to expand the documentation to based on our need. You can include any number of sections, but there are few fundamental that we have to cover. I'm going to explain the upcoming upcoming sessions. Okay. In the initial stages, it is a benefit to implement the basic scripts to verify. Only I am just giving you how we can. So because once you have the collection, and if you put the basic the scripts and with the validations, so that information also you can manually include in the API docs, so that will be useful when you move on to the next stages or further evaluation of this particular test scripts development. So this is the basic readiness based on my knowledge and experience on the API domain, so that we can effectively generate the further documentation. Okay. Moving on to documentation. Okay. What we have: documentation details I told you about, and then purpose. What if you don't have the documentation, what will happen? Okay, so I'm going to give our view on that one. In general, in the projects, so they tend to skip the documentation of a few activities because of the various reasons. Might be a time constraints or stringent timelines, like that they tend to skip. But having the documentation would solve many problems, many unexpected problems that occur in the future. Okay, that's why every project demands proper documentation specific to the business that it holds. Okay, that's why we are demanding that one. So when coming to the API side, so we have to understand on the basic details of the particular endpoint or total entire API. So that suppose you have a e-commerce platform, and you have about 200 plus APIs are there. One is order processing, one is account processing, one is checkout processing, one is search process, like the different APIs with different combinations are there. So those details we should have. Okay, so it acts as a reference to understand the business purpose of the endpoints, and it also provides the opportunity to present the use cases from various perspectives, enabling broader test coverage. So if you are defining the endpoint, and if you are going in detail of that particular endpoint, you should be in a position to derive that particular endpoint in a different business cases. You can present positive and negative cases. So that's the the platform it will create to the end users to look beyond the coverage. Okay, so that is the main core purpose of core advantage of having the API documentation. And the next thing is, so the purpose of having well-crafted documentation can be defined in various ways. So there is a systematic the process or standards or sections as given. Those are the mandatory. Beyond that one, if at all if you wanted to add anything, you can add it, because that will become the live doc as long as that API is exist and doing the performing the functional business. Okay, so that is one thing. Suppose in the large scale projects with over 100 points, tracking, and suppose you do not have any documentation, it's a legacy project, and it's very difficult to modify or understand this particular document, particular endpoint. It will take certain amount of time to understand and draw the insights. So in order to avoid, we should have a documentation. Suppose someone is developed the test suite, and you do not have any trainings or anything, and the document will act as a live to bring that particular new resource on board very quickly, as quickly as possible. So you don't need to separately conduct knowledge transfer sessions. So you just share that particular doc about that particular APIs, and in the next day onwards, that particular resource will be into the the functional. Okay, so that kind of advantage we have if we have a proper documentation on this particular APIs. Okay, so key component within the platform, preserving the essential details that facilitates understanding as endpoints to evolve meet business needs. Suppose in case a project wanted to modify that particular API, and dev team doesn't have any kind of documentation in hand, and you are the person to showcase and present, hey, this is what it is, and it can generate this one. Or else you can look at the documentation and understand and give the input feedback to the respective stakeholders. So that kind of feature it will create, and gives the mm, uh, required information to the stakeholders on the need basis. Therefore, maintaining comprehensive documentation paves the way to correctly address and overcome future challenges. Definitely, suppose if you have all the information in place, then you don't need to worry about that one. So it will give the necessary information so that you can easily crack that particular challenge, and you can suggest the various approaches. Okay, so these are the two things that I look at part of the readiness. One is a prerequisite, what you should have, and what are the components it contains in the documentation, what is the main purpose. Okay, so the purpose that I have explained over here, and I'll give the overview on the details in the upcoming sessions. But as of now, this particular readiness will contains the endpoints you should have, and parameters, and response and request body related information, and authentication related. So these points audience should know, whoever is working on API automation or API testing side, so that they can easily generate and expand the documentation of that particular endpoint, and that will be act as a live document as long as the project is live and available. Okay, so that's all I have in this particular session, and I'll catch you in the next session. Thank you.